Arteta! What a strike! What a screamer! Zola! And a fantastic goal! Arsenal back in it! And here's Lipa, lines it up, finds the net. Arsenal are in front.
British fans fleeced for £15 and still only get to watch one half of Arsenal football. This is the Arsenal Vision post-match podcast. My name is Elliot Smith. You can block me on Twitter, Yankee Gunner. Hey, £15, what a bargain. For £15, you should get 90 minutes of football, not 45 minutes of football. Now, do we blame pay-per-view or do we blame the team? I will leave that to the experts, and they are here. You can find them on Twitter at PositineMyPants. Hello, Paul.
Woohoo.
And on Twitter at ClivePAFC. Hello, Clive.
Hello, hello.
If you want a conversation with less of me and more of them, and including Tim, you can listen to the Instant Reaction Pod. Now, it's on Patreon, but it's free for everyone. It's unlocked. And we did that, and I have to give Tim credit for the idea. I wish I had it, but I'm glad we did it, which is, look, if you are a British fan, you were given the option to find an illegal stream or pay the paltry sum of just £15 for that 90 minutes of football. And if you did that, then we wanted to provide a little salary relief, a little wage relief, as they say, by making the Instant Reaction Pod free for everyone. So you can listen to that. It's Tim, it's Paul, and it's Clive, but I do a 6-minute rant at the beginning. So you can either skip the first 6 minutes and listen to them, or if you are, a masochist, you can just listen to the first 6 minutes and skip the rest. It'll be a blend of the two today, I feel, and I think we want to have two kind of conversations here. One that is granular about the game, as we always do, and another that is more of the issues of what's happening with our football and maybe how it started to drift a little bit away from the progress that we'd all started to see at the end of Project Restart. So we'll start with the positive. And there's a third conversation, which is also about how to properly shave your privates. Of course, don't forget that. We'll get to Manscaped a little bit later on. So, Clive, I think it is worth acknowledging that there were signs of life in the first half. Now, I think that they may be overstated, and I think they're partly overstated because we took some shots and it was better than the second half. But, Leicester came and seemed to want to sit very deep, at least for the first half, and soak it up. And we pushed a lot of resources into their half, but it kind of left us playing the maestro in midfield of David Luiz. Everything that we did creatively seemed to work through him, and I think a lot of that is because we had a profile in midfield with Partey, Xhaka, and Ceballos that was all very similar in terms of what they bring. So, on the one hand, some positives to the way we pushed them back, held the ball, built from the back. On the other hand, maybe not the incision in the center of the park that we would have wanted. How do you weigh the pros and cons of the way we tried to build the attack in the first half?
Yeah, so when you're playing against a mid-low block, there's different ways to attack it, right? So you can either start switching play. Liverpool do this a lot. They switch play from side to side onto aggressive fullbacks. One does a set and cross in Alexander-Arnold, and Robertson normally drives into those areas off the switch and crosses on the sprint, right? So we did this a lot. So David Luiz got the golf clubs out and he did the switch left from right to left out to Kieran Tierney a few times. Really exciting. They was already high. Then he did the chip down the line to Bellerin on the sprint coming in from out to in. So we all recognise that, right? All passes made to look better by aggressive, committed movement, right? So, and that's not a bad thing. That's not a bad thing. It forces crosses, and we're not the best crossing team, but crosses are crosses, right? Make people defend. It's very hard to play through low blocks, particularly when your three centre mids are one in the west stand, one in the east stand, and one in the middle of the pitch, right? So it's very difficult to get any sort of connection and connectivity and 1-2s and combinations, particularly with a centre forward that's not in the best of form, shall we say. I won't say too much because I want to leave some space for others to say some things. And so, yeah, it looked okay, didn't it? We looked okay. We should have had the early goal. And I quite liked the tempo, the movement, the pace and the intention of that first half. And we were unfortunate. And we're unfortunate to come in, equal. But in the back of our minds, I think we're all thinking, they've come out here with no forwards. They're basically giving us the game. They're saying to us, what I'm going to say. They're telling us about us, right? They're saying, we just got to hang in with Arsenal because they're going to do something stupid eventually and we'll get in, right? So, and so that's what we saw. We just saw that developing over time, and I felt there's almost like a confidence that eroded as we knew the longer the game went on, we didn't score, and I thought that manifested itself later. But first half, I was fine. I was fine apart from the fact we weren't 1-0 up. I was really quite impressed.
I think that the positivity about the first half is overstated. Now, some people would say you've been crying out that we need to take more shots. We took whatever it was, 11 shots, I think, in the first half. So there you go. You got your shots. I would say that that is fair. We did shoot more, but I think the patterns of how we built play, settling into that horseshoe passing, but the irony is it wasn't horseshoe passing like under Arsene Wenger where it was on the edge of the area. It's horseshoe passing was on the edge of the final third. So instead of it going around the penalty box, it was going around the final third. And if you look at our pass map and you split it up by half, I mean, the second half is really terrifyingly dire. But the first half even, there's just a really neat horseshoe right around the edge of the final third and not a lot of straight balls through the middle. Now, straight balls through the middle have been a problem for us, period. I don't know who was supposed to play them. And we'll come on to that. We'll come on to how we use part
sorry,
of it.
Yep. When you say final third, sorry, Paul, when you say final third, are we talking around the box?
No, I'm saying deep, 10 yards deeper than that even.
Okay.
So under Arsene Wenger, it was on the edge of the box, but in this game, it was 10 yards even deeper than that.
And that's why they played 6 midfielders, right?
Yes.
To make sure there was no lanes into that zone 14 space. So I just wanted to check.
That's exactly what I meant. And Paul, I mean, we'll come on to Lacazette. I worry that the Lacazette conversation is a convenient scapegoat for a lot of dysfunction in the way we were building play because Lacazette was involved, he missed chances, but like being involved and missing chances is better than not being involved at all. We're going to lay some stuff at Lacazette's feet. We'll come on to that. I just think that it is a convenient way to avoid discussing other problems. And one of the things that I look at, this thing we're trying, the 2-3-5 buildup, right? So it's 2 of the center backs. In this case, it was Luiz and Gabriel sitting behind. And then it was the 3, which was Ceballos, Partey, Xhaka in the midline. And then the 5 lanes in attack, which became whatever it was. Tierney, Saka, Lacazette, Aubameyang, Bellerin, thank you. I mean, fine. But they're all so on plane with each other. There doesn't seem to be a lot of people dropping in between the lines and connectivity there. It feels very horizontal, very flat, very rigid. And as a result, it felt very easy for Leicester to just block the pathways to them. So, Paul, I mean, that 2-3-5 buildup, do you still like it? Do you think that it needs to be tweaked? Because for me, it felt very on plane, like just that the players were not finding pockets of space, and it was very easy to block off.
So I'm afraid we might have to differ on this one.
Fire away.
On a few points. I think the first half has been under-hyped rather than overhyped.
Ooh, boy. We are going to fight. I wasn't expecting a big fight, but we'll have a big fight.
Imagine us losing a game and not being reasonable about our performance. So, it's a really good first half. It's not my flavor of football necessarily. If we critique the fact that we didn't have a lot of passes through the middle, well, that's not a bug. That's a feature. I mean, just look at the pass map. It's beautiful, if you like that kind of thing. It is literally a perfect symmetrical horseshoe. It was the plan.
Are you looking at the pass map that I put in our WhatsApp?
Yep.
I mean, it literally couldn't be any uglier if you said to me, paint the ugliest pass map imaginable.
Why is it ugly, though?
So, and I'll let you back in here, but it is literally a line of 3 at the halfway line, 2 chunks of 3 in the wings, and a number 9 standing totally unconnected to any of it in the middle. And there's no central midfield. There's no attacking midfield. Yeah, it's a horseshoe.
It's a horseshoe.
It's a horseshoe.
But it's beautiful. It's symmetric.
Oh yeah. It's a beautiful horseshoe.
You're looking for us to play that yeah, but you're looking for something we weren't even trying to do. Now you don't like that. That's fine.
That's fair. But yeah, you're right. You're right about that. I am making a qualitative judgment about the style.
Highly functional.
Okay, fair enough.
It was.
Yeah.
We had a bunch of shots. Had Lacazette goal gone in, that would have been nice. Had he put his head on the ball, we would have actually got the XG we deserved off his second header. That was a big chance. That was probably worth 0.42 or something like that. We would have had, we don't care about scores around here. We care about stats and XG. Bingo. We would have had a reasonably statted first half that we could all feel good about. The goal would have been a nice little bonus. Then we get on to discuss. Now, this is not me saying we don't have lots of problems and that you couldn't see what those problems we're itching to be from the first half. There are things you can go at from the first half, but I think the first half went very well. I think we were very unlucky. The manager was very unlucky. The second half, I think we were unlucky again, but only we had a couple of injuries, which obviously affected how we played. But we got beaten the way there was an inevitability in the second half, not just because Vardy came in, but because of how we were set up. And so the flaws you could see in the first half. I think as well to say that Leicester didn't come to play in the first half is all wrong. I think they did what they did best. I mean, in the pre-match review, I said something close to the fact that this was probably one of our trickiest encounters, because this was just where you didn't want to be, playing Leicester at home. Because are we the protagonist? You'll remember this because I couldn't say protagonist last time either. But are we the protagonists? Yeah, we have to be, because it's at home and it's against Leicester, a team that shouldn't be better than us but might be. And we're going to be in this awkward situation where we have to go at them, and it's just going to suit them perfectly. And this, the second half was kind of on the cards. The first half was good, though. And I have no problem with how we created play, pinging those balls. It wasn't just out to Tierney. Bellerin was making his runs in behind. Yes, we weren't doing anything through the middle. We weren't really using Lacazette apart from the guy to finish the chances. It's not brilliant, but it was good. Had we come away from this with a win or a result, and the second half not been terrible, I think we would be talking about how we build on that and what we can do better and all that kind of stuff.
I think there are times where you disagree with someone to a level where the best thing to say is agree to disagree, because I don't even have a way to respond to it, because I literally, every word you said, I think the opposite of. So I'm not going to go into it, because I literally, like, every single word you just said, all of them. Every single word. If you said the opposite word, that would be my position. So I'm just going to stay. That's my position.
Look at the emotion we're saving ourselves.
I know we're saving ourselves a lot of energy here. I think there are now. Let me be serious for a second. I think there were good things.
Don't do it.
Okay, there were good things about the first half. No, I just want to get that out there. The goal we scored is a perfectly good goal. Shouldn't be ruled out. I don't think it's a brilliant goal, but it is a goal that should count. And when a team comes to sit in and do nothing, if you can put them behind and force them to do something, the game gets easier for you. So when those things don't go your way, I acknowledge that. That really sucks and that hurt us. Lacazette gets his head on one. You're right. We're talking about an expected goal half that beats our expected goal season for the most part. So you're right about that. I think the things that worry me are like our principal route to getting in behind them or hurting them was still David Luiz pinging long balls. I think the midfield was too on plane. No one was really taking the job to step forward between the lines. Again, maybe it was. I agree with you, but if it's by design and we're going to get into this, I think the design needs to be tweaked. I still think, Paul, that against a Leicester team that was content to kind of keep us at arm's length a little bit, we did okay, but the type of, you know what I think it is? There's not a lot of variety to the way we create chances. Like, you know, against City.
So here's where... here's my concern with this. Even if we take it that, hey, that was pretty good. If we go up my story, the next time we play somebody, they're going to be ready for that.
And they're already ready for it a little bit, right? I mean, we're already seeing some of the, like what City did against us.
This is not a repeatable plan.
Yeah, froze out our ability to use the overlaps on the wings. They put Walker on Aubameyang, and it just shut the whole thing down. Well, Clive, I'll let you come in and have a little response to this as well before we get in. We should talk Lacazette, so we'll do that. The only other thing I'd say, though, is that, when you look at the chances we created, and we did create some, and the way we're doing it, I think variety. So I mentioned the City game. You know the two chances, the one that Saka gets, the really good Saka chance, and the Aubameyang one that was offside but wasn't actually offside. They both come from something we just don't do anymore, which is little triangles on the edge of the box. A little bit more aggressive, advanced possession, players on the edge of the box interconnecting. And I think the thing that frustrates me, Paul, and frustrated me in this half, even though we did create chances, is we do not want to, either by design or by ability, have those interactions in the deep final third, on the edge of the box, the close distances of players on, right at the top of the box where they can make quick darting moves and quick 1-2 passes. There's not a lot of that. It's a lot more based on spinning it out to the wings and trying to cut it back in. And the one thing we do know is headed chances are low XG chances. Crosses are hard. The variety isn't there for me. So, Clive, there's a lot there. There's a lot of meat on that bone. And we can start to turn it a little bit to what happens when this system all pivots around getting Lacazette into dangerous positions in the form he's in. But do you want to have a quick go at Paul and I, let's be fair, slightly disagreeing about the quality of that first half? Not totally, slightly disagreeing. I exaggerated a bit.
See, this is what I love about football, right? Not just a disagreement, but I keep saying it, and we keep doing it, right? We keep bringing our ideals to the show, right? So every game is different. So Man City, what did they do? Man City, they pressed us massively. They played a front two of Aguero and Sterling, and they played 4 midfielders behind us. They knew we were going to play it from the back. They had Foden, Bernardo Silva, Joao Cancelo, and Mahrez all pushed up, and they had 3 defenders at the back. So they pushed the emphasis forward, right? And so once we broke through them, we could do those combinations. What did Leicester do? They dropped away into a mid-low block. There was no passes to have those combinations. They blocked those areas. They didn't bother having 2 forwards. They said to us, we're going to let you have the ball. And that drove us to switch in play and longer balls to try to get to the gaps which they gave us was down the sides. And so every game has something different. You can't just say, I want to see some Wenger football here, because they took 6 people in there. There was no room to do it. So they gave us the room to go to the outsides. This is what I love about the game. It's something I want to talk about. I don't want to do it now because it'll take up too much Paul's time. But the game is formulaic now. It is not what we used to be. Everybody has a plan. Everybody has a pattern. It's not the
improvisational.
Thank you. And I wonder if it's been exacerbated by the fact there is no people there. It becomes 2 coaches fighting each other. And so when we're in the ground and we have a situation on Lacazette's goal, we're after the referee, we're creating a dynamic, we're creating a variable, we're creating something people can spark off. So you're seeing less momentums. You're seeing coaching swings in momentums. You're seeing formulaic football. It's like when you see a magic act and you work out how the magic's been done in the background. It's taking that away from you a little bit, right? So the variables is changing. The game is changing. It's almost like the first time I got involved into learning how the game was built by looking closely at coaches, I was actually quite disappointed that all these patterns happened by design. I thought they just happened. Do you know what I mean? And then you realise how formulaic and precise this game is. And I think it's becoming more that way because the atmosphere is becoming clinical. It's like a doctor's waiting room. And I think the players that inspire those individual moments, they're being reduced by the environment by which they're playing in. And we're not seeing it. And what we're doing as fans, because we're disconnected, is we are hammering down on the formula of what we're seeing, right? Even more so, rather than the emotional reactions of what we're seeing during the game of a referee or a player. We're not seeing so much of that. So we're all becoming more formulaic, is what I'm trying to say. Let's stop looking at every game the same way until we get to that point when we see what we like. Because City and Leicester City approached us in 2 different ways, and we had to play in 2 different ways to try and get something, and we've got 0 so far.
Yeah, and I mean, you make a good point. There's a story about Pep, maybe it's apocryphal, but like Thierry Henry scored a goal, but he was like a little more central than he was supposed to be or something. So right after he scored the goal, he took him off because he was pissed at him for not like holding his position or whatever. Yeah. And it's this idea that like everything is sacrificed at the altar of positioning and structure and plan. And we're seeing that Arsenal are a more structured, planned team than we have ever been. And some of that works. But like, for example, the winning goal we score against Rapid Vienna, much like the 2 chances I talked about at City, what does it come from? It comes from a darting run in behind from Bellerin. It comes from an intelligent run from our center forward. But it also comes from El Neni playing a little slip ball in behind, standing 2 yards off the penalty box. And like that positioning from El Neni for that goal is positioning that none of our midfielders took up really at any point in this game. So like, I think it's interesting, right? Like, Paul's got a point. The first half had a lot of good things about it in terms of chances, yes. But you know what's interesting? List the players who were good in the first half. It's the same culprits, isn't it? Luiz, Gabriel, Tierney, maybe Bellerin. Saka, yeah, but it's not your center forward. It's not your right winger. It's not any of the three central midfielders, right? It's we are having trouble engaging those elements of the team in our attack and making them flow. So I don't want to shit on the first half. I think, look, we created the chances to win the game in that first half, at least a couple of them. We didn't take them. I still think you can put them under more pressure and you can vary it more, but Paul's right. That's me having an issue with the approach, not the execution of the approach. So that is fair. But I think that leads us inexorably to the fact that the reason this game is not 1-0 Arsenal at the break or 2-0 Arsenal. I mean, it should have been 1, if not for the referees and VAR. But like, terrible decision. But Paul, I don't think this whole thing can be laid at Lacazette's feet. I'm not usually one to go to defend the scapegoat. I'm usually the one who is trying to stick the last dagger into the final space I can find in him. But you know what it is, Paul? Lacazette's not the future of Arsenal. We know Lacazette's in decline. We know Lacazette is not excellent anymore. There's a reason Nketiah has started ahead of him. There's a reason Willian has started ahead of him. There's a reason Joe Willett came on and played false 9 against Rapid Vienna. It's because Lacazette is not an elite talent at this point in his career. So I look and I say, is the fault that Lacazette played badly again? Or is the fault that we're persisting with this? So, how frustrated are you with Lacazette's performance? And does that then also beg the question, what are we expecting? Why keep doing the same thing, expecting a different result?
I feel kind of bad for him because I don't think he's ideally suited to the role that he's been selected for. And I think he's going backwards.
Yeah,
kind of a vicious circle cycle thing. Mm-hmm. This won't help him be a better striker next time round. Maybe it'll force the manager to do what we're all itching for him to do at this stage, play Aubameyang through the middle. It wouldn't be fair to put this all on Nketiah next if the manager comes to the conclusion or now has the excuse to yank Lacazette as the option through the middle. And it may force the manager just to kind of loosen up his ideas and roll the dice and try something different. And we all want to see Aubameyang through the middle at this stage. Some of us had more of a problem with him being on playing from left than others. But I think all of us in recent times are like, well, there's nobody good keeping him out of the centre forward line. The idea, I think you can say, that Arteta had was that he didn't have enough goal scorers. He had one. So he wanted a couple of goal scorers in the front line, and that was Lacazette and Aubameyang, at least as of last season. His rationale this season, it's just Lacazette isn't going to get any goals. We weren't going to get one way or another. In fact, I'd fancy Aubameyang or Nketiah to get their head on that ball coming through. I'd even fancy Lacazette to get his head on that ball coming through, the one he didn't put his noggin on. Jesus. So there's only so much you can put on Lacazette. I think he might be going backwards because this doesn't suit him. It doesn't suit Aubameyang at this point. Playing him on the right, I don't get. I'm sure there was some genius to that. I didn't see it. Maybe the idea was that Aubameyang himself would be getting in behind, doing what Tierney did on the other side, though it was generally Bellerin. When you look at how far forward we got Bellerin and Tierney, it was very interesting. It was very, we hung it out there.
We used the stability of that midfield three to let both fullbacks push up for the first time this season, right? Is that that is the one thing I would say that was a change, is for the first time we saw Arteta unleash both wingbacks, and I think he felt comfortable doing that because he picked 3 tactically adept, stable midfielders behind them.
Yeah, and it gave us effectively 2 wingers. They were on that line waiting for it on both sides, and Luis and once or twice Partey hit them. Xhaka once or twice too, but certainly Luis. And that was the game plan, and it was interesting. It's not my preferred form of football. I wouldn't like to see it every week. You can neutralize that if you know it's coming, but it was interesting. It was a thing. And we executed, and it was pretty good. The whole playing without a midfield thing is a little bit of a head scratcher, but I get it in this game, and what we do. Where do we go forward with this system? I mean, move Aubameyang to the centre. That'll be good. It does give him then options in terms of what he's going to do on the wings. And I came into this season thinking we had lots of wide players, so that's not the problem. Move Aubameyang into the centre and use the other wide players. But we basically somehow have ended up with Saka and nothing else very exciting from the wings. We can go through the list of names and they all semi-disqualified either by their performances so far or by the manager's feelings on them. I mean, Pepe is a weird one, something I would have wanted Arteta to address and progress, and that seems to be going backwards, now forwards. It seemed like Pepe ended the end of last season looking good and engaged and like he was getting the hang of it, and I was optimistic about how he would come into this season. I mean, don't take it that I don't have lots of things I can criticize Arteta for. Most of the first half isn't one of them, but the second half, I mean, you can blame players, but I blame the manager for what happened in the second half.
Come to that incrementally, and I will say, by the way, like I think Mikel Arteta would not have picked Alexis Sanchez to start games, and the reason I say that is that like I think his issue with Pepe is the same thing that he'd have with Alexis. He does want that predictability, that repeatability, that reliability, that structure, that system. And players like Pepe, players like Alexis, they have to get 8 out of 10 things wrong to get 2 out of 10 things right. And the 2 out of 10 things they get right are devastating. But the 8 out of 10 things wrong give the ball away. They're sloppy. They look poorly executed. And a manager who is as much of a seeming control freak as Arteta is, and that may be a misread, but it feels that way. I don't think he likes that. He'd rather have Willian looking a little bit slow and a little bit leggy, but doing the right thing from the right place every time, than Pepe doing the opposite. Now, the one time we played Oba central, Pepe right, Saka left for 20 minutes, Pepe's one thing he got right was a stunning goal against Sheffield, right? I mean, a solo effort that comes off. I think the issue with Pepe and Arteta is simply a player, and look, I'm not going to pretend Pepe's been great, because he hasn't. I believe in his talent still, but I have to admit I'm starting to have questions for the first time. But I think players like that are going to get 8 out of 10 things wrong and 2 out of 10 things right don't necessarily fit Arteta's desire for structure, predictability, repeatability. So, Clive, I mean, you can weigh in on the Lacazette thing a little more. I would say, and we'll get to this towards the tail end of the pod, what we're doing with Aubameyang longer term, but you can't play Lacazette central and have a bad game with Lacazette central without looking at Aubameyang being an absolute shell of a player on the right. And again, this isn't FIFA. Just putting the star striker up front doesn't fix your team. But when the striker you're playing is not playing well, and your star striker is not playing well, you do have to start to say, if you're not going to try the obvious thing, people are going to criticize you for it. It doesn't mean the obvious thing would fix everything. But Clive, like, at some point, we got 2 players playing badly now. So, yeah. I mean, it is not. Can I just give you a couple quick stats, actually, before I let you expand on this? Because this is pretty wild, okay? These are Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang's expected goals per 90 going back to 2017 at Dortmund. And you tell me if it's a player in decline or a player being used wrong or both, okay? So, Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang, last season at Dortmund, 0.96 expected goals per 90. 0.71 at Arsenal. 0.68 at Arsenal, 0.45 at Arsenal, and this season, 0.13. So you've got a problem here because you've committed to this player long term. Either you have committed to a player who is in clear decline and we are being smacked in the face with it, which none of us want to say is the answer. So the only other answer is we're looking at a player capable of 0.96 expected goals per 90, and we are using him in a way that we've downgraded him all the way to 0.13. So, and not to make statistics everything, but it is just not working for him. And he is the guy we just hung our club on.
Yeah, well, we've paid him, and he deserved that payment. I know you questioned him, even though he's your favorite player. He's
my favorite player, and I still for these reasons. If you're not going to lean into using the guy you just hung all this money on, then maybe don't give him all the money.
This is, I think. I was a little bit angry on the instant reaction. Well, angry for me, that is. And the last time I was angry was probably Brighton. And the only times I get angry is when I see stupidity. Right? That's the only time.
And yet you still do the pod with me every day.
And when I see stupidity, I don't like it because these are professionals. These are people I want to look up to. Right? So, and in the way I look at football is very simplistic. We are developing talent. We are buying talent. So we have 4 or 5, maybe what I call proper talents in Gabriel, Partey, Aubameyang, Saka, and Pepe, in my opinion. Of those 5 players, right, we're not using Pepe appropriately. We're not using Aubameyang appropriately. In this game, we didn't use Partey appropriately. We missed him out, right? Gabriel has got Muppets around him. Right, so he's looking like Koscielny now. His face is looking traumatized as he's running around trying to point and cover gaps. Do you know what I mean? And Saka, this young kid who's just turned 19, the only one that's brave enough to roll off the front line into the midfield, he's getting kicked to death, and his mates just looking at him. Right, so, and we're worried about when a 90-year-old goes down injured because we know he's the only one brave enough to turn around, punch it 1-2, and have shots. Right, where everyone else with their Ferrari driving mates are standing on centre-half's toes, marking themselves, right, and fouling people. And so I hate seeing stupidity. I hate seeing top players being marginalised and not pushed to their limit. You heard me say it 100 times. The definition of a coach is to maximise the potential of his players, not to minimalise the potential of his players. And we haven't got enough world-class talent to minimalise the ones that we have. And we spoke before about the point you made on the little rant before the instant reaction, Pom. And we're not far apart in our thinking. I think we just describe it in a slightly different way, or mine from a coaching perspective. But we have these players. We've invested in them. Give them the keys to the car. Let them run. Make Pepe feel important. Stop making him feel unimportant. You see what I mean? Make him feel important. Give him the room to roam and create. Get him near Aubameyang, because I tell you, the two of them next to each other are going to score goals. Stop messing about with people that can't move, can't run, can't jump, can't do anything quick enough. Get them out. Get them out. We can all see it. Get them out. Make them sit and look and watch. Give them a jacket. Give them a coat on the bench. Sit down there, because you're not doing it. You see what I mean? Mm-hmm. Make sure you maximise the potential of the players you have. Do not. And I have learned so much from Arteta about shape, organisation, hybrid players, moving people. I didn't know about the 5 channels until about 4 months ago. So now I'm not going to sit here and say to you I'm this master coach. He showed me the 2-3-5. I really looked at it. I've looked at the 3-2-5. I've looked at the emphasis. I've looked at the 5 defensive channels, how he feels it. I've learned so much from him. This is not a stupid man. He's a highly intelligent man. Stop marginalising your best players. Football is not that complicated. Get them in that's where the money is. That's where your talent is. We all know who they are. Get them into the team. Make them feel important. Build your tent around them. And stop messing about with water carriers and making them feel important while your superstar lead actors are sitting on the outside of the team watching it on pay-per-view.
Yeah. And Clive, it's perfectly said. Look, at some point, it seems pretty clear to me that Arteta got it in his head that the most devastating place for a runner to hurt the opposition is from the weak side or between the fullback and the center back, or you know what I mean, and that's
true.
Yeah, but exactly, and he got that in his head, and that's how he wants to use Aubameyang. But it's like you have to update your opinion based on evidence. Right? Evidence has to change your opinion. Like, I can be a complete SOB. I acknowledge that. Sometimes I have strong opinions about things, and I give them forcefully, and that can be off-putting to people. But I like to think that I update them as the evidence changes. Because if you're not doing that, then what's the point? And I think Arteta has a really good point about how you can use Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang effectively. But he's got to update his opinion based on the evidence. Clive, go ahead, yeah? And then Paul?
Well, I was going to say, Elliot, we said before the point, I think this is a real game where data and periodic data really makes an impact. You know, I think there are times to look at data. Do you know what I mean? There are games to look at data. None of the data that I've ever seen said that Pierre Aubameyang's better from the right-hand side. At no point. It's pretty clear. It is clear. So why would you do it? That's what I mean by stupidity. Why would you do that? It doesn't make sense. Do you see what I mean?
No, and I mean, I would argue he's not great from the left-hand side, and I know that there's some data there too, but he's massively spoofed XG from the left. That's a different issue. Paul, because I want to take a break quickly to make sure that we all have very cleanly shaved privates. Obviously, can't do a podcast without that. But before I do that, I don't want to freeze you out of the Aubameyang thing. I mean, I would say that conceptually, you can talk me into the role that Aubameyang has been given by Arteta if it worked the way it's supposed to. But because it is not working that way, and because the players being given the central role are not working out, you have doubly the influence or the impetus to change it. And I think I said this in my rant in the instant reaction pod, and I stand by it, which is selling Aubameyang would have been excruciatingly painful. It would have been a commitment to a longer-term project that many of us would not have wanted. Fine. But if you are going to give a 31-year-old striker all the money and commit to him, then you lose the ability to say he has to slot into my system. You say, I have to build a system to maximize him. Because the way you deploy resources in a club determine what you can do. If we were building long-term and we had sold Aubameyang and we hadn't gone for party and we had kind of gone younger and Mikel said, I have a system we're building towards, and that's the project. So be it. But when you give a 31-year-old striker all the money, you have an obligation to build a system that suits him, not make him suit your system. Because I guess what I would argue, Paul, is if you want a player that suits your system, don't re-sign the 31-year-old. Sell him, cash in, buy someone who's young and pliable and fits your system better, or use your 31-year-old to his best skill set. So do you see where I'm going now? Which is that, once you allocate resources, that allocation of resources should dictate the path you take footballistically. And we now have an obligation to maximize Aubameyang's contribution, and the system and the way we're using him aren't doing it. So I have sympathy for Mikel if he says, I have a system I really believe in and I want it to work a certain way. But you've got this guy who's 31, who's now our most expensively paid player, and you've got to get the most of him or you're nowhere. And I don't think he's an elite-wide player. Sassy, I watch Saka, and I think Saka is a better player than Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang playing on the left. That's a problem. You know what I mean? That's a problem. Because your teenage kid is outperforming your superstar striker from the position you want to use him. So I keep restating the same thing over and over again. I got to get off this hamster wheel and find a way to turn it over to you. So can you just start talking and please stop me from talking, please?
So Saka is a better left winger than Aubameyang, but even in the left wing, we're not using Aubameyang the way it's intended, right? Were we more in control? If we were able to push the toothpaste further up the pitch, Aubameyang would be where we actually want him on the left, which is not on the touchline, but rotated in towards the center. Because, yeah.
As we get closer to their goal, he gets more and more central.
Yeah, we definitely saw it yesterday to a degree. Unfortunately, he was on the other side. But look how far we were when we were in control, when we had possession. Look how far we got that left side all the way up, right? It was a little bit of a different concoction yesterday, but it's kind of I'm going to use the word apotheosis because I like it, but I'm not even going to worry about whether it's the right word.
You've used up your allocation of that word this month, by the way. It's your second.
Okay. So to your original point, which was you pay him all the money, you got to put him in the position to shine. Built into that is your prejudice. I know it's a harsh word, that on the left is not, and it's clear that Arteta doesn't necessarily share that. Honestly, I'm not sure how I feel about it. I'm open to it because Arteta feels so strongly. I mean, if it were me picking the team, I'm a simple sort of fella. I'd probably play him up the middle. But I get it. I get why he should have space to run into. I just don't think we're close enough to playing the kind of way where we're really going to give him the advantage of playing from the left. Being in control of the game enough to pop those balls over the top for him to run into in the channels. And because we're not where we need to be, I'd prefer if he was just standing where we're trying to get him, which is through the middle. You can still play it into the channels, which is He can go left, he can go right. He actually gives you more options through the middle if you want him playing not quite central. There's lots of ways you could slice it. I'm open to persuasion that playing him from the left is a good idea. We seem to be getting by with it last year. It hasn't really lit me up as to how we're using it. I get the philosophy, but the toothpaste isn't far enough up the tube yet where we're really seeing the benefits of him playing from the left. Our striker sucks at the moment, and we happen to have another world-class striker. So put him there, put Saka on the left. That solves the Saka-Aubameyang problem. Right now, all we need to work out is who can, because we're kind of beginning to dismiss the ideas of Pepe off the right. But maybe if you have Saka on the left, Aubameyang through the middle, that's going to make it a far more interesting formulation with Pepe coming in from the right. It certainly shakes things up, and I've always liked the way Pepe and Aubameyang combine. It'll give a lot more threat. That if Aubameyang goes to the right and pulls the centre back on that side with him and gives the corner full back something to think about, then Pepe goes the other way. If you look at the goal against Rapid Vienna, you talked about Mohamed El Neni, you talked about Bellerin. Who you didn't talk about was Pepe. And what's Pepe do? Pepe runs from out to in and opens up that corridor for him. It's 3-4 different players with a combined movement and combined threat. And unfortunately, Lacazette, as Clive said, is lack of threat at the moment. He can run wherever he likes. He's not pulling their centre backs with him. They'll let him go ahead and shout out to him, we'll catch up with you later if we need to. So you need this interplay between them. You need threat, and Saka, Aubameyang, and Pepe spells threat. Willian, I don't know. I think I still like him more than most people, but he hasn't done a lot for us recently. But I think he's just maybe caught up in the quagmire that is this system right now. But I did want to say on the manscaping thing.
Yes,
I've
please.
been offering you some feedback recently, and you haven't really taken me up on it.
No, I'd love to hear.
So I got the Manscaped 4000. Which is it's a bit of a demon. I think if you scaled it up, it's kind of like having one of those power mowers on, well, in my case, probably 1.5 acres.
Sure, you don't want to leave
of
this
property.
To me?
But I've got into a little, topiary. I got into a little topiary. I got like a little swan thing going, and I got I got a whole flock of geese, and I got like a little a kind of a ornate 18th century kind of maze where you can go in and kind of wander with your loved one for a little romantic idyll. It's all scaled down, but there's a lot you can do. I think a lot of young people are just like shaving the whole thing off, and I don't get it. I think you let it grow wild first.
So remember earlier in the podcast we talked about execution but being okay, but the philosophy being different? I think we have a similar situation there, which is that you've executed your concept effectively, but philosophically, I have a lot of problems with it. And so I'm going to use this as an opportunity to run the real advertisement. I don't know how I'm going to turn this into the ad-free version for patrons. So patrons, I apologize, because how could I possibly leave you out of that? So let's take a quick break to tell you about the actual product that does actual stuff that is actually really good. And when we come back, if we still have a sponsor, we will talk second half. We'll talk Thomas Partey. I think there's plenty of meat on that bone. And look ahead a little bit. Stay with us. Look, just because something's awkward to talk about doesn't mean we shouldn't talk about it. So we're going to talk about shaving your privates. And Manscaped is going to help take care of you taking care of your privates. They are a line of world-class men's below-the-waist grooming products. And right now I want to talk about the Lawnmower 3.0. Make this a Christmas gift for yourself, which becomes a gift for your partner. Make it a gift for your partner, which sends a message the right way. Or just give it to yourself for yourself because you love yourself, and loving yourself is important. You know what doesn't say I love myself? Using an old razor in the shower and then nicking yourself up and having all kinds of cuts and abrasions and pain. That's no good. It also doesn't say you loved yourself if you don't keep yourself trimmed and clean. Right? Trimmed and clean, you feel fresh, you feel better. These are hard times. Make yourself feel a little better about yourself. Now, why the Lawnmower 3.0? It's got a phenomenal long battery life, so you don't have to worry about it running out of battery. It's got a great charging stand. I just leave mine in the shower, though, because it's waterproof, so that's perfect. It's always in there when I need it. It's got a light so I can see what I'm doing. And with a ceramic blade and 7,000 RPM motor, you get no trimming incidents, accidents, injuries. Avoid that. Look great, feel great. Take care of something that you should take care of, and just because we don't talk about it doesn't mean it isn't important. So go there, manscaped.com, manscaped.com. Please use the promo code ArsenalVision, because that'll save you 20% and give you free shipping. Manscaped.com, promo code ArsenalVision. You'll get 20% off and free shipping. Go there now, get your Lawnmower 3.0, and take care of yourself. Be good to yourself. Do it now. Okay, we're back, and hopefully the actual advertisement has purged from your mind the memory of what happened before the advertisement. So let's hope. We'll see. I'm going to bring Clive back in here now to get the podcast back on track. There's still a lot to talk about in this game. The second half, we had one shot worth 0.07 XG, and I think we just kind of laid down. And some of this is about fitness. I mean, losing David Luiz hurt us. Losing Bukayo Saka hurt us. I think we lost our way a lot in the second half, and Leicester played a little and scored. There's some Mustafiing that went on. There was some shacking that went on. But none of that is super interesting to me. I mean, ultimately, it is not the defensive errors that are costing us. I mean, yes, you shouldn't concede that goal, but if you don't concede that goal, you get the 0-0 draw you don't want anyway. It's the not scoring. And so I think we have to talk Thomas Partey, Clive. I took some pelters for not being 100% behind the Thomas Partey deal. And you know this from doing 2 scouting pods with me. I think he's a very good player. And I think there's a chance he will still improve us massively. But much like my Aubameyang rant of using the resources that you've invested in, clearly we need a playmaker and we don't have it. So we went and got Thomas Partey. Well, if you're going to put the big money into Thomas Partey, then you have to trust this guy to do the job of 2 in a way. You don't need Xhaka, Ceballos, and Partey. They are all similar in their roles. Sit deep, be tactical, win the ball back, progress it to the next level. Partey can do it more elite than Xhaka with more mobility. Ceballos had an off day. We could come to that if you want, but I don't think it's necessary. I just think not only did we have 3 of them, but in having 3 of them, we chose not to use the one we just made our record signing because the ball bypassed him the whole way. I blame the selection of the 3 in part and putting them all on plane with one another. Now, to some extent, it's understandable why Partey wouldn't be used a ton right away because he's new, but this was a problem. This is our star signing. We planted a flag with bringing him in, one of the elite central midfielders in world football, and we put him in a system with 2 guys that ape his role. So how do you feel about his usage in this game and how we failed to get more from him, and maybe how we avoid doing that again ever, if possible?
Yeah, that's one of the reasons why I was pretty angry, right? Because there's stupidity. We didn't have any depth in midfield. I think it's, my theories about the game being 5 at the back, 5 at the front. There's not so much a thing as box to box anymore, but you can create depth by where you stand. And I felt we were quite cowardly in midfield. So Partey was given the central zone, whether this was by design or not. Xhaka was dropping in deep on the left-hand side, and Ceballos, I don't know where he was standing. I don't know what he was standing in, because he must have been standing in quicksand as far as I was concerned, right? So we had no depth. And then what do we had this player who was, when he played with Elneny against Rapid Vienna, I know it's a championship level team, but we could see the start of something there. He did everything. And he had a partner that allowed him to do everything. Elneny, he's an enabler. These other 2 guys, I was shocked by the lack of balance. I didn't expect that. And I read, I'm online as well, and I see many of the start 11s, and many people wanting the 4-3-3 with Xhaka and Partey and Ceballos in it. Many people wanted that, and we saw it for the first time. Whether the construction was correct, we saw it, and I didn't like it. Not only did I didn't like it, I didn't like the fact that we missed out the guy who's the best of all 3 of them. We just missed him out. And if we are still giving the key to this car to Granit Xhaka after we're spending the money on this guy, then we're making a fundamental error, because I don't think Xhaka's passing is anywhere near where it should be, anywhere near as adventurous where it should be. There was opportunity for him to fade balls over top. He chose to go on the ground and got cut out. His pass selection, his pass execution, his technique on his passing is not what people think it is. It isn't. People look at it and say, "Oh, he's a good passer." That's because he can't run, can't tackle, can't do anything else. Do you see what I mean? Not good enough. Not agile enough. Doesn't move the ball quickly enough. He's not good enough to be given the ball 100 times a game. It just isn't. Do you know what I mean? And so we buy someone to do this who can solve problems. When the ball comes to get to pressing, say, "Oh, you're getting done. I'm going skipping past you." Attract people, pop it, and off we go. People start to move, start to roll in based on what he can do. When Xhaka and Ceballos get it, I'm sorry, my hope index goes down. Unless Ceballos gets it on that left-hand side higher up, because he's quite imaginative on that left-hand side higher up. So play him there. You see what I mean? Don't play him at right-hand side. You might as well play Maitland-Niles out there, because he's a much better player for that. And so there's so much wrong with this setup that annoyed me. You know, I've gone a little bit further about the channels we're using at the moment. I don't like the fact we've got 2 fullbacks in the 5 channels. I don't like it. Have one of your fullbacks inverted like Man City do with Kyle Walker. Because then we won't get done on defensive transitions, right? Because then we won't have slow blokes in midfield.
Amen.
What are we doing with 2 fullbacks in the 5 channels? Rubbish. That's absolutely rubbish. That's not how are we going to score. You know, don't tell me Bellerin's a great passer in last third. No, he's not. He's all right. He's not as good as Pepe would be.
I mean, he was our most effective attacker in this game, to be fair, and yet our best chance. Beside the one that Lacazette
he's an off-the-ball runner. He's an off-the-ball runner, right? He's got a good time when he runs in behind. He's quite brave and aggressive and courageous. Stopped in the second half, mind. Note.
I mean, he hit that volley like a chance. I mean, that's the chance of the game, other than the Lacazette missed header. Yeah,
he's an off-the-ball player. That's what he is. And you know, I would give Tierney a go as one of the 5 channels because I think his delivery is better. I think it's much more accurate. So we need to flip the balance. Have your defenders defend, have your midfielders create, and have your strikers score goals from central positions. Please. Stop putting defenders in the 5 channels because you're going to get what you're going to get. You're going to get plucky crosses. I don't want plucky crosses. I want attackers putting the ball in with devil. You know, so this is why I'm angry about this game. Stupidity of applying your resources to a game of football. It wasn't smart. It really wasn't smart. Too many errors. Yeah, Too many errors.
I think the problem when you have Partey, Ceballos, and Xhaka standing in a line at the center of the pitch, none of them, I mean, Partey and Ceballos maybe more than Xhaka, but none of them are going to slip a ball into the forward. And if you look at the pass map, and Paul, I know you liked it in terms of the sense that like it was the perfect it was the apotheosis of that system, but like Lacazette
it was great in the
standing,
first half and showed you its vulnerability in the second half.
Well, and Lacazette is totally disconnected from anything. Nobody found him because there's no one between the lines. Like, if you want to play Partey and Xhaka and Ceballos, put Partey and Xhaka in a double pivot and let Ceballos kind of flit in between the lines in sort of I hate to even invoke his name, but an Ozil type role, or let Saka play that way and drop one of Xhaka and Ceballos and put Aubameyang back on the left and bring Partey in. Have someone connecting the middle group to the front group in a pocket between the lines, especially the way Leicester set up with 5 right across the middle, because someone's got to pull them apart a little bit. The fact that
can I say something as well?
Go for it.
The other side of it is defensively, and like you can blame whoever you want on the goal, but I think the personnel's irrelevant on the goal. They knew, and you know this because that was almost a set play for them. You could see what the guy gets it. He spins onto his right foot and he bangs it over the top, practically no look, into under over. Who runs onto it and squares it to Vardy. It didn't even have to be Vardy. Anybody who jogged in other than Lacazette would have got their head on that. It wasn't Vardy going at 100 miles an hour. It was the guy in the centre running forward and meeting the ball. It was so simple. It was a guy popping it over the top, under running forward and putting it across. It was a drawn up play against a central midfielder who was tiring. I mean, they must have talked about it for 10 minutes at halftime. Here's what we're going to do. We'll bring on Vardy. He'll run up the middle. We'll bring on Under. He'll run into that. And when you look at our defensive line, not only did we have our 5 attacking slots filled on the other end, defensively, this was a situation where we had our 5 defensive slots filled. And Tierney was to his left. The one defender besides Gabriel who could have kept up with him was marking the winger. Well, all of us would have known that Xhaka was going to get done in the second half if he was playing as a centre-back, as he tired, as he made poor choices, and that would be the play they drew up for him. So there was a naivety, as much as this kind of worked for us in the first half, as soon as Vardy came on, this was going to be how they got us. They didn't need any brilliant craft. Just pop it over the top, run at Xhaka. I mean, the guy was 10 yards clear of him.
The funny thing is, like, for as little as they did, I watch Madison, for example, and I'm just like, who has that role for us? Who has that role for us? Whether it's Grealish at Villa or Madison at Leicester. You look at these teams that are able to push the ball forward, and I don't know who's supposed to be doing that for us. And I mean, we had a lot of control in this game. There wasn't the space to run into, so I don't want to make it sound like we could have done that. Paul, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I got to go.
Oh, you got to go. Okay. So we'll let you go, and then we'll wrap up. Paul's on Twitter, Paul's in Pants. Thanks, man.
Woohoo.
Woohoo, indeed. We'll chat soon, I am sure. And poof, Paul's gone. Clive, let's talk Nicola Pepe. So I look at three pieces in this squad. And by the way, I don't want to just kill the club about the way they've allocated resources, because there's always time to praise Gabrielle, who looks better and better and better and better and never looks bad and always looks good and was a tremendous purchase. Right age, right money, great physical profile, looks great. The club has put a lot of money in Pepe, Aubameyang, and Partey. And I feel like, that combined with the young up-and-coming superstar of Saka, they're your players. Go make them work. Go make those guys work. Yeah, so the Pepe thing increasingly feels headed towards a bad outcome. And one thing that I do notice that's become a trend is when a player isn't working out for Arsenal, the excuse is he's not being used right. So Torreira was bad at Arsenal, and the excuse was we're not using him right. And Pepe hasn't been great at Arsenal, same excuse. And Aubameyang isn't good right now, same excuse. But the problem is, it can't be both things. Either the players aren't good enough or the coach isn't using them right. If it's the first, that's a problem. If it's the second, that should be fixable. It seems to me we have to make Pepe, Aubameyang, and Partey work. Those three, we have to find, plus throw in Saka. You have to find a way to maximize that. What isn't working about the Pepe situation? Do you think it's related to what I talked about earlier about him being a player who's a little more jazz, a little more improvisational in a system that doesn't allow for that as much? Is it, is it not that when he's played, we've not attacked up the right enough to really give him a partner? What's your take on Pepe? Or, and I hate to even propose it, is it just that this player is just not as good as we hoped, and we have to come to terms with that?
I personally really like his talent. I think some of the things that he does really, really well are uniquely top class. Right, so based on things I've looked at, I just feel we need to trust him a bit more. I think we need to make him feel important. I've felt this for a while. The times when he's played well is the times when we've lent on him. We've really lent on him. We need to give him more creative responsibility and scoring responsibility and demand more from him. His price tag demands things anyway, but then you have to systemically demand from him. Put him in positions in the pitch. Don't have him on the extremities of the team. Have him at the heart of the team, as close as possible to our superstar striker. It's just simple as that. We've got a front four diamond we should be playing. We all know what the four should be, potentially on balance. Saka, Willian, Pepe, and Aubameyang. That's your front four diamond. You have a double pivot in behind. We've got four players we can play double pivot. Choose whichever two you like, right? But obviously the £50 million signing should be one of them, or more often than not. And then you've got fullbacks. You've got 4-5 fullbacks, and we got 400 centre backs. This isn't too hard. Right, and you can create shapes within that, in game, in possession, out of possession, because we've got a number of players that can move from zone to zone. But really, your front four diamond has got two creative finishers, and you've got Pepe and Aubameyang, which I think are their primary psychology is one's finisher scorers, right? Scorers who can create that way around. They're killers. To make them be those players, lean on them to be those players. As soon as we start debating people if they're being used appropriately, then they're not. As simple as that. You know, they're not being used appropriately. Let's not talk about their talent. You know, Pepe's done it. When Pepe does it, we're all convinced. When he doesn't, we're not.
Yeah,
right?
well, look at that goal against Sheffield, right? I mean, Sheffield United, that's kind of what you would draw up, yeah.
Only he can score that goal, right? So the only one other person that could do it is Aubameyang, right? So these two are special talents. They are match-winning talents. Get them on the pitch together, near each other. Give them the scoring responsibility for Arsenal Football Club. We got Willian, whether you like him or not, he was by far Chelsea's top creator last season. We've got him on the outside of the team. Get him on the inside of the team. He's 32 now. Get him on the inside of the team. Get him, you know, technically being near Saka, creating chances, being crisp, being technically secure. Tim sent something out today about our technical security in the top third. I massively agree with that. You know, but look at the personnel. We're asking Bellerin to be secure. We're asking Aubameyang to roll into midfield to be secure. That's not what we want him to do. You know what I mean? We're asking people to do jobs. We're asking Lacazette to come into midfield and hold the ball. He's rubbish at doing that. You know, he's a side foot, second forward, cut back, finish. That's what he is. He's not super in the build-up. He doesn't hold the ball. He's not physical enough. He's a second striker. His best period came in the 3-5-2 with Aubameyang up front, two strikers, and Aubameyang stretching people, and he fills in the pocket just in behind. The first time I saw him play for Lyon, that's exactly how he played. He was never a lone number 9. Not for me, anyway. And so, again, another player we're misusing, right? So we're all frustrated as fans because we can see the misuse. We can see it, and it's cost us 2 league defeats on the trot. Played 6, won 3, lost 3. That's not good enough. That isn't good enough for this team. They're better than that. We've dropped a couple of points there, minimum, that we should have. The one good thing is we're not getting bopped in these games. But the thing is that I'm coming to your world now, but what's happening is the game is becoming far more about fine margins. So this misuse of resources is not turning the margins our way. You know, we can't afford to have it game on game not being optimal. Everything in the league now is open. Every game could go either way. There is no home advantage due to the crowd situation. So this is all about fine margins, fine detail. We're getting some of the defensive stuff right. Unlucky with the injury situation, but we're not getting the offensive stuff right. We're not deploying our resources appropriately.
Yeah. I mean, look, I completely agree with every bit of that. I think we can sort of start to wrap this up. I would just ask, I mean, at the back, you know, Mustafi's been out a while. There's some people that want to kill him. I think the issue is more that Mustafi is who he has always been. I think the redemption arc was not something we should have bought into. I feel that at times, Clive, most people are more humane than I am. I acknowledge that. So they want to find a way back for every player. Find a reason why every player is still good, is still usable. And the redemption arc for Mustafi is a nice storyline, but we always should have been moving away from him, right? So, like, whether you want to lay that goal at his feet, whether you want to kill him again and send him to the bad place again, like, to me, it's just another example that, like, Shkodran Mustafi should have moved on, and we can't move him on, and we're in that position with a lot of players, right? Like, it's, for me, the condemnation here belongs with the club, not with the player in a sense, because there never should have been a period where Shkodran Mustafi is a guy we should be relying on. We knew who he was, right? Yeah. There was no real reason to buy into a renaissance arc there.
Yeah, he's a back 3 defender in a deep line defense, right? He can head things out of his box. He can head airplanes out of his box. And he's game and he can switch to play. He's got a decent cross-field play. But as soon as you pull him out of his hole, well, he comes back in the installments, doesn't he? He's got to wait for a taxi to get back in. And so that's it. And he gets attracted easily. He gets pulled out of his hole easy, and he turns around and he goes, oh shit, I'm in trouble. Either he grabs somebody if he's close, or he just jogs back in and puts his hand up and says, sorry lads, worst number 3 points gone. And so, you know, we're lucky. We're, as a podcast edit, we're growing, and we've got a great audience, and we've got great subscribers. We're lucky to have them, because I'm not going to talk about Xhaka and Mustafi again, because they're all going to unsubscribe, because we've been doing this for years. We all know their weaknesses. We all know this. We're not going to do it again. We just have to wait until this stuff goes away. And that's some of the contractual discussions we've had. it's coming to an end. Next summer, there are some contracts that are just going to roll off, and we're going to have to wear the cost, hopefully in a different market. This stuff will go away. I don't want to spend too much time talking about it. I just want to make sure that the shining lights that we do have get supported appropriately. And I will say, you know, we got a young defender we're not sure about at the moment, and we got a set of young players that we might see on this week against, was it Dundalk this week? I'm not sure. I think it's Dundalk. I'm hoping we get some positivity from that game, because we've used a set of players now for a long time, and some of the younger players are not getting they're not getting a chance, and I'm hoping they shine, because I'm wondering where a couple of them have gone. You know, Joe Willock has gone. Right, you telling me that he couldn't have done that right-sided role, but what he was being asked for, and maybe 10 yards further up, and maybe drive. Do you know what I mean?
Yep.
Leicester didn't play us anyway. At least he can sprint back and recover. Maitland-Niles gone. Where's he gone? Did he say the wrong thing in his press conference last week about Ozil? You know, did he just misread that situation? Has he been clipped? Because he was surely due to play against Rapid Vienna but didn't play. Saka played, looks knackered. What's going on there? Do you know what I mean? You know, Reece Nelson, I think, you know, Tim's point he said out earlier, Reece Nelson's one of our most secure players in the upper third on technical security, keeping the ball. He must be sitting on the sideline watching these idiots lose the ball, wondering, can I not do something? These players are going to get a chance this week. Let's hope they take it. Let's hope they put some things in the manager's mind. I'm not sold by all of these players. I do think we overrate a few of them. But hey, look, we've got a group of young players. They need to go and show they're ready to rip the shirts off these guys' backs when they don't perform. Some of that's with the players, and I have to say, some of that's with the coach. I'm not going to protect the coach. I sometimes do that in my analysis. This one is stupid. He overthought the City game. Yeah, and I think he just didn't have the ability to adapt in the second half. I think that was the key thing for me. Just change it, adapt quicker, change the system, do more things, make sure our top talent's in the right part of the pitch. Maybe unfortunately with a couple of injuries, again, where he has been unlucky with injuries and sendings off. But you know what, mate? I want to see him not be so stupid with our 5 superstars, shall we say, that we're developing.
Yeah, and I mean, I think you can have real issues with what Arteta is going through right now, and still believe he has the capability to get us through it. But I think this is a pivotal moment for Arteta, because you know what, Clive? Like, he has to show that he can take this dogmatic attitude towards system and structure, this sort of control freak system and structure approach, and tweak it and be willing to make some changes for the benefit of the results and the performances. Like, I don't think that Arteta, it's pretty clear Arteta's not dumb, right? Like, he has put a structure in place at a club that had no structure, that was just a mess and in free fall, and he won us an FA Cup with it against big clubs. And you know, the build from the back, play out from the back, beat the press, quick hitting attacks, that part worked. Now when teams sit off us or don't get drawn in when we want to play out from the back, that's the next part. You know, can we fashion chances from dominant possession? That's the next layer he has to put in. I just think, whether it's unfair to Arteta or it's fair, the club have shown him where the investment was. Pepe, Partey, Aubameyang. And, you know, I don't think any of them are bad players. I mean, Pepe's the one that we're still sort of scratching our head and saying, what is he really? But, like, in a way, this was my rant on the instant reaction pod. It's just that if what Arteta wanted was to really commit to a specific system, and it was going to be a long-term project to build a team that can play in that system, then we should have set upon that project. And no fans like to wait. No fans are patient. It would have been painful, but we would have seen by the actions of the club that we were on a longer-term project. But the club tells you what to expect. When the club buys older, more ready-to-play now players and spends really big on them and gives big contracts to 31-year-olds, like, the club is saying, we think we're in a position to make a move now. And if the club says that we're in a position to make a move now, then we as fans are going to turn around and say, all right, we expect to see that move happening. Because if we're not going to be good this season, And if we're not going to be good next season, because this is a longer-term project, you then have no choice but to say, was signing a 31-year-old striker to a new deal the right move? Was buying a £72 million winger the right move? Was paying a 27-year-old £50 million in a big contract the right move? Not because they're bad players, of course not, but because you're contradicting what you're telling us. And I just think that there's an incompatibility here. And the incompatibility is we are using a system that does not seem to leverage where the resources have gone. Playing Willian at false 9, Aubameyang on the right, leaving Pepe on the bench, Partey in a 3 with 2 other players that seem to kind of negate his influence and make us unable to break lines. So, I think it is time for Arteta to make the tweaks that get more from the pieces that have really been invested in by the club. And if that doesn't work, that's probably not Arteta's fault. It's probably the club's fault. And I feel for him because Raul was here for a couple of years doing Raul stuff. And, we got a few things right. Tierney was certainly right. Gabriel was certainly right. But whether it's Willian or Cedric or Pepe or, I can go on and on without wanting to get too controversial about it. That's stuff that's not on Arteta, but that's what he has to work with. Clive, as a final thought, I mean, we get Dundalk this week. It's a chance to rotate and rest some heavy legs, but he also needs to sort of get a bit of a tweak in place before we go into United, and then Villa's not an easy game. So what do you think if you were in the room with Arteta right now and he said, I want your opinion? Where's the easy money? Where's the easy fix that takes this structure that has positives and makes it a little more dynamic, a little more penetrative so that we can put the opposition under sufficient pressure?
We're going through a transition at the moment. So when he took over the uncoachables, right, and coached them.
Yeah.
So we look like a coach team. Some people say we look overcoached, right? So I wanted us to be a coach team. So and I wanted to play because I thought Emery coached us, but I don't think all the players were on board, right? So Arteta's coaching us, and everyone's on board apart from the bloke on 350 grand a week, right? So, and the others that are not on board are out on loan, right? So these guys are on board at the moment. They feel positive, and there's been some good things. So the uncoachables have shown they are coachable. They've exceeded our expectations, and now we have expectations. We have talent. So now suddenly it's switched. This group now needs to meet our expectations, and that's what's changing. Alongside that, other teams have had a look and goes, wow, Arsenal look good. They've woken up. They look like a serious club. They're buying physical, tall players. Wow, this is interesting. We better look at our phony baloney dossier on them and try and have a plan, right? So, and City have given us respect. Liverpool have given us respect. Leicester City have given us respect. And it's our inability to solve those problems in game, on the pitch, without water breaks, with talent, that's caught us out. It's caught us out. So now we need a situation where we have a little bit of improv out of the norm to say, you know what, I need to stand in here because they're not giving me the space where I'm told to stand. I need to move forward a little zone because they're getting away with it back there. And my £70 million winger's not getting the ball. So I need to drive forward, get a couple of fouls, get my man booked. And then when I drive forward on the third occasion, he can't tackle me and he'll get the ball one-on-one and we can maybe get a chance. We need more of that. We need more problem solvers who feel the game, read the game, have the ability to solve problems. Let's not go past our problem solvers. Let's not go past our talent. Let's give them the game, give them the keys of this car. And some of the people who have got the keys, they're not doing it. They're not doing it. So I'll give Tobias a break. He could be injured. I'm not a bigger fan of some people.
I was surprised he played, right? I mean, he was a doubt for this game.
Yeah, but he played, and I will give him a break because sometimes systemically a system can absolutely kill you. And he looks not very good in wide spaces. Shock horror. Right, so I'll give him a break there, but he's important to this team, whether you like it or not. On the interior, Willian is important to this team because they're quite neat, and we lacked neat players. Only had Saka, and once he got kicked off the pitch, we could only go from back to front, and it wasn't very pretty. So I think we're going for a phase now where I've said it before, and the guys on Discord don't agree with me, but I'm telling you, I'm right on this. We're being looked at. We're being scouted. We are better than we've been historically, and teams are challenging us now. This is a good sign. It's a sign of progress, but we have to overcome the hump, and that's the next step for Arteta.
Can I ask you a silly question? One of the problems with football sometimes is that, like, we look at other teams that have something good happening, and we say, why can't that be us? There was a lot of moaning after the Leeds Villa game of people being like, well, if Leeds can play attacking football that looks fluid and, dynamic, and they don't have players we have, like, why can't we do it? Like, I know football doesn't work that way, but what's your answer to people that see other teams with arguably less talent finding ways to create more fluid attacking football? Is it as easy as just saying that, like, other teams play them differently, or we're trying to do something different? How do you react to criticisms that are comparisons and between us and teams that maybe aren't struggling with the kind of things we are right now?
Yeah, we're struggling with balance at the moment. We're not the only ones. Manchester United are struggling with balance. They just bought a £40 million Dutch midfielder, and I don't know why they bought him. How they're going to use him, right? It's a shocking waste of resources, right? So,
well, there's a glass houses element there. But
yeah, there is. But we do this, but that's even worse, right? He's a young player that's super talented. Just picked the wrong club, and the club picked the wrong player. They should have gone the whole hog, gone for Grealish and played him high up. But they've got Marcus Rashford staying in that hole. But then they have got to make a decision. So they didn't make one. They just bought a little bauble for the Christmas tree. And now they're going to kill that kid's career, which is terrible, right? So not everyone had. Chelsea got balance issues at the moment. Now, what are they doing to the midfield? They don't know what they're doing at the moment. They're conceding goals when in some games and not scoring in other games, yet they've spent 200+ million. It's not easy, this game of football. Man City are searching for balance at the moment. They're not always finding it. They haven't got the forwards in the right health at the moment. And so it's not easy. It's not easy. We're not the only ones. But we only care about one club, right? And we can see that we have got resources not being used correctly. I do think balance is something, when you see it, it becomes obvious. We saw it against Sheffield United for a short period. Not every game is the same. I recognise that. But isn't that a good benchmark by which to hang our hats on? And I think when Arteta first came in, he gave us the old 4-2-3-1, 2-3-5, 3-2-5 system. I like it. I like it a lot. We just need to build on that and make sure we're maximising our resources and stop being so stupid and stop overthinking.
Yeah, well said. I think that's a perfect way to leave it. Stop being so stupid. Should that be the headline of the podcast?
Yeah, I don't like stupidity. Brighton, stupid. Villa, Brighton was the stupid one for me. Villa, they did what Leicester did, but I don't think we was good then. But now we're better. We got better players, so this is worse. This one really bothered me. I
don't like stupidity. That's going to be the title of the pod, and that's going to be the end of the pod. So thank you for putting up with us. Clive's on Twitter at ClivePFC. Thanks, man.
Thank you very much.
My name's Alex Pithick, Black Man on Twitter. Yankee Gunner gives a 5-star review. Write nasty things about Paul for whatever he did before the advertising break, because yikes. We play something called Dundalk next. So maybe it'll happen. Maybe it'll finally happen. We love you, and we'll talk to you after Arsenal 10. Dundalk 0.